Hi, this is Paul Niebuhr with Synergy Innovative Systems, and this is a brief video to talk about the version 2 of the Command Club billing. By way of an overview, Command Club billing was initially developed in 2017, and it tried to track the memberships independently of Gin. So as members were loaded into Command, were activated and inactivated, Command did its best to track when these different individuals should be billed. In 2020, with the new Gin system and the new reporting available for billing, we were able to utilize the Gin API to create a club billing report, download it, and use that exact information to create the bills. We've refined that to accommodate various billing requirements for various associations around the United States. You can print or email deliver the invoices. There's also an online billing portal for clubs to log into and look up their bills. There's a payment import function for those of you that are using QuickBooks to manage your accounting. You can export the payments from QuickBooks and import them into Command. There's also an invoice import. Should you want to actually generate the invoices in QuickBooks, they can be imported into Command, as well as any other charges that you have going to the clubs that you want to make available to the clubs in their club portal. And there's an invoice export for QuickBooks for those of you that want to use Command to generate the invoices and then load them into QuickBooks for ongoing accounting. So this is a look at the manual billing process, so what your bookkeeper or accountant has to go through to produce the invoices. So the first thing is invoice generation. They have to actually get the invoices created, most likely in QuickBooks. To do that, they would download the Gin billing file. So they'd have to generate a Gin billing file and then download that spreadsheet. And then within that spreadsheet, there's a sheet called the Billable Golfers by Club. And then you'd use that to create an import file that you can use to import the invoices into QuickBooks. So you essentially have to take that sheet, manipulate the columns, put in invoice numbers, invoice dates, things like that, and then you can import it into QuickBooks. And then obviously have to go through and do the actual import. Once you get the invoices created and in QuickBooks, then what you would need to do is print the invoices that are getting distributed on paper and email the invoices that are getting delivered via email. To do this, you would use the billing spreadsheet that comes from Gin, and we're going to take a look at a sample of one of those spreadsheets right now. So this is a Gin billing spreadsheet for the Test Association. You can see that there's just a few billable clubs here. We haven't set them all to billable in our USGA test command, just a couple of clubs just to give you a flavor of it. So if we take a look over here at let's look at the Gin Golf Club. You can see the columns up here for MC1 count, MC1 rate, MC1 total. So those are different member categories along with the billing rate and the totals. So to create the invoices in QuickBooks, you would have to create an import file from this. So these columns might have to get rearranged a little bit so that they are in some type of an invoice format, and then load them into QuickBooks. Once you did that, once you had the QuickBooks loaded with invoices, then what you would need to do is to create the backup files that would go along with the invoices when they get mailed out. Now those backup files can be created from the detail listing sheet in that Gin billing file. So you can see here for like the 99 club, we have a list of all the golfers that are included in this billing, but it's all in one big long spreadsheet. So if you wanted to create attachments for emails, what you would have to do is you'd have to highlight all these rows here for just the one club, create a new spreadsheet, paste them into the new spreadsheet, and then save it with a name where you would know where to get it, like with the club name or the club number, so that you'll know what file you'd need to attach to the invoice when you sent out. For the printed invoices, all you can really do to create these backups is to print this entire sheet. You will get them on separate pages, so you'd have each club would start a new page, but then what you'd have to do is take your printed invoices and collate them with the backups and stuff them into the envelopes to get them sent out. A lot of manual effort that goes into doing this. So now we're just going to take a look at what a typical process would look like to go through a command club billing process. So the first thing that you would need to do is to actually generate the invoices. And again, as we were talking about before, the way that this works is command will use the Gin API to ask for a club billing file, and it would then download the club billing file, load the information into command, and construct the billing from that. So these are a bunch of different parameters that you would set to get ready to do the club billing. I'm not going to go through all of these with you. I'm just going to get them set. So we have all the parameters set. We're doing an incremental billing as opposed to a first billing. Our invoice date is going to be February 15th with a due date of March 15th. Our initial billing revision date was January 15th. Our last billing revision dates, we've only got one of January 15th. We want to count memberships as of February 15th, and if any of you have run any Gin billing reports, you know that this actually gives you all the memberships that were active as of February 14th, right up and through midnight. So midnight February 15th, you wouldn't get any February 15th memberships. It would be as of February 14th. If you wanted to count the members that were there on February 15th, you would have to put in a date of February 16th. We're going to generate the invoices for all. Some of the associations have different billing schedules for like private versus public clubs or hardware versus software, things like that. Eliminate memberships with status before or after. Some associations actually do an initial billing every time so that they get the entire membership, and then using that status date, eliminate certain golfers. It's just another way of doing things as opposed to doing incremental billings. Generally, we will run a report only first, and then later we would generate the actual invoices. Force Gin rerun, that we only do if you like run the report and you get a bunch of errors, like a lot of members didn't have member types assigned, things like that. So you can have it rerun the Gin report, the Gin billing report if you want. So I'm just going to click on run. It submitted it. It's finished. We got a couple of errors. I know that these two Gin numbers don't exist anymore. They probably got merged into other Gin numbers. Other than that, it's pretty clean. So we would just save this file. And then we'll open it up. And this is essentially our billing report that command generated. So as opposed to what you saw in the Gin billing report, everything for the club on one line, we have the different member types on separate lines. And we have different counts that we've got tracked here. This is how many are going to be billed. That's the dollar amount that's going to be billed. So we would look through this, make sure that it looks reasonable, maybe sum up the number of members that are going to be billed, see how that compares to what we have in Gin. But again, all these numbers are generated from a club billing report that is being pulled from Gin, which if you're doing billing manually now, you're using the same report. So all these numbers would match up. The next step would be to actually generate the invoices. So all I would need to do is change this yes report only to no generate invoices and report. And then I'm going to go ahead and run that. And this obviously is going very fast because we've only got a couple of clubs that are being billed. A bigger association that had was doing an initial billing for like 40 or 50,000 members, this might take 5 to 10 minutes to generate these invoices and or the report. So I'm not going to download the report again because that is already, we've already looked at it, we haven't made any changes, so it's going to be exactly the same. One of the clubs that was billed is this MAT test club. So we would just take a look in the accounting tab. Here's our initial invoice. Here's our second invoice. And you can see that there were no members added after January 15th. So the second invoice is for 0. We're going to take a look now at one of the settings for this MAT test club, which is how they want the invoices delivered. Club billing invoice delivery, and you can see that the options are none, where they don't get any kind of an invoice generated at all, email, paper, or both. So we're going to select both so that this way we can do a set of printed invoices and see what the invoice would look like. So we'll come back over to our club billing. We already did the invoice generation. Now we're going to do the invoice printing, and that's actually invoice printing and email, so that maybe should be called invoice distribution. Now we didn't have anything for a February 15th billing, but our January 15th billing did have some members to bill. So we're going to take a look at that. We can do print, email, or report, or have it generate individual roster files for each of the clubs. We're going to get all the printed invoices. There's a couple of different formats of the roster that we can use. We'll select the condensed. You can choose whether you want balance information included on the invoice or not. And also, we'll go into this a little bit later, the people that joined online and you've received monies for that on their behalf, you can have it include a list of all the people that joined online for this time period. Now this is, we're printing the invoices, so we don't have to worry about this email template that's going out. So the invoices were generated. Again, this happened very quickly because there's only a couple of clubs that were billing. 200 to 300 clubs, with like 40 to 50,000 members, that might take, again, 10 minutes or so to generate all the invoices. And then we get a PDF file that we can save. And then we'll just open that file up. And this is what our invoices look like. And in the billing settings, which we'll take a look at a little bit later, you can set up what the template will look like for the top of the invoice and the bottom of the invoice. But this is essentially what our billing is. We have 4 junior members for $10, 234 regular members for $25, and this is the total. So the second page should be a list with all these golfers. And here we have it. These are all our golfers with their member types. And this is the condensed format. So we're going to be using as few pages as possible. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at some of the other billing functions. You can send out statements, and those again can be emailed or printed. You can apply online membership receipts. So you would just pick a from date and a to date. Typically it would be the same period that you're billing for. So we billed from essentially January 16th through February 15th. We would pick that as a from and a to date, so that it would gather up all those online membership receipts to apply them as a payment or a credit to that club. What it's actually going to do is create an adjustment for them and put that into their accounting tab. So you would just pick an adjustment date that you want. So if you're billing on, if your invoice date is February 15th, a good date to pick would be the same, February 15th. So the invoice and the adjustment are essentially the same date. And again, like most of the other billing functions, you can get a report only first before you go ahead and apply all those payments. Some associations, when they collect online membership receipts, they send back the overage. So if your association fee is $25 and if they join online, it's $35 every month or every some period, $10 for each member that joined online would be sent to the club. In which case you would only be applying the association portion of the fee as a credit on this club billing invoice. Otherwise, if you don't send anything back in cash to the club, you would have the entire payment credited to them. And you can enter in a line item to describe what you're doing. The only other interesting thing, two other interesting things that we're going to look at right now are how the billing rates are set up, and it's pretty simple. This one only has one for, we call it standard billing because there is only one. In some cases, there is hardware and software, different rates whether you've got hardware in the organization or not. Sometimes there's different rates for public and private clubs. So you would just set up whatever the rates would be. So for the standard rates, juniors are $10, and we saw that in the invoicing. Regular members are $25, which again we saw in the invoicing. There are other things that Command can do, such as if you've got a minimum number of members for each club, it will track the billing, how many members have been billed versus what the minimum is. So like on the initial, if you had 100 minimum members for a club, it would the first invoice, regardless of how many members they had, would be for 100 members. And then subsequent bills, there wouldn't be any amount on them until they exceeded that minimum number of members. And this first bill percentage, some associations just charge like 50% of what is due on the first bill, and they catch that up on the second bill. The last thing that we're going to look at in here are the billing settings. You get to put a note on the invoice and include that anywhere that you want. This is where you would design the header. This is where you would design the footer. And if we just pop back over to the invoice for 1 second and go back to page 1, you can see that it's set up the same way as the header is set here. The last thing that we're going to look at are costs, or at least some estimation of costs, what it is doing the process manually versus what it is, what the cost of the Command Club billing is. So these are the assumptions that we're using. I think they're somewhat typical for an average association size. So if you have 300 clubs with an average of 150 members per club, that would give you a total membership of 45,000. Assuming 5,000 or so of those as juniors, that leaves 40,000 regular members or adult members. And the reason that that's important is because the Command and the club billing fees are only based on your regular members, not juniors. Looking at the manual billing process, we've done some timings for the various processes that you have to go through to perform a billing manually, and we came up with on average about 12 minutes per club. So that would mean a bookkeeper would have to spend about 60 hours for this particular association with that number of clubs, 60 hours to spend getting the invoices generated. And if you assume that your bookkeeper is costing you about $50 an hour, your cost per billing cycle is about $3,000. If you have 4 billing cycles per year, your total annual cost is about $12,000. So you know your costs better than I do, and I'm sure your bookkeeper, your accountant knows how much time they're spending better than I do. And it is, it is a manual process as well with a lot of moving parts. So there's a lot of places that errors can be injected. So the cost of the Command Club billing, it's 10 cents per regular member per year. And in this case, we're looking at 40,000 regular members, so the cost per year is about $4,000. Now, there is still some time required by your bookkeeper to run through the command billing process, but we're not talking about a significant amount of time at all. If it would be an hour, it would be a lot. That wraps up our club billing overview. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much for your time and attention.